Sulka here. In this video, I'm going to talk about how you can get the best recommendations possible, especially from your teachers. So the first step, obviously, is to look at the college's requirements. Some colleges don't want any recommendations. Some only want recommendations from teachers in core subjects. Some will also accept supplemental recommendations from, say, a coach or the boss at your part-time job. And one of them even wants a recommendation from a peer. So first, find out what the requirements are. Generally, students choose junior year teachers, but you can also choose teachers from your senior year or your sophomore year. Now, the most important thing is to be wary of the tendency to choose the popular teacher. You're not necessarily looking for a teacher that you like the best. You're looking for the teacher who's going to give you the best recommendation. And sometimes those two are not the same thing. So, first, take a look at your application and see if you can identify any gaps in information or any qualities of yours that could be reinforced by a particular teacher's recommendation. Also, instead of thinking about which teacher you like the best, try to think about which teacher knows you the best. And finally, sometimes this is hard to tell, but try to figure out which teacher will write the best recommendation. And by best, the best recommendation is always the most specific one and the one that's most particular to you. Now, sometimes the most popular teachers will end up writing 40, 50 recommendations a year. And though most teachers do their best to write personal and individual recommendations, that's obviously easier to do if you have 10 students than if you have 40 students to write recommendations for. Now, before I ran the Writing Center, I was a classroom teacher for 7 or 8 years, and I was the one, some years, writing 40 recommendations, and that was in the years that you had to submit recommendations in paper form and to each individual college. So I'm very conscious of making recommendations easier for teachers, and you should be conscious of that too, not only out of consideration for the teachers, but out of your own self-interest. The most important thing, well, I would say as far as timeline, give a teacher at least 3 weeks. Although there are some students that ask the teacher before they leave for the summer after junior year. But I would say that 3 weeks is a good minimum. And the most important thing is to ask your teacher in person or in times of coronavirus in a personal email before you click that submit button. So there's nothing like having a recommendation just show up in a teacher's inbox to get off on the wrong foot. So make sure you talk to them first before you send them the digital recommendation. Also, I highly recommend that you provide the teacher with detailed information about yourself. I don't care how close your relationship was with the teacher, most teachers are just not going to remember the details about you or about your work as well as you will. Teachers have 140 students a year, and by the time they write your recommendation, a good teacher will have already moved on to getting to know their new 140 students. So reminders never hurt. Now, what to submit? So some teachers will ask you for specific information, but in general, don't just submit a generic resume or questionnaire. Think about it. If you're submitting the exact same information to your counselor, the principal, your choir teacher, your math teacher, you're going to get 4 very similar recommendations. And though maybe a little corroboration of your good qualities is a good thing, redundancy is a waste of space on your application. So you want to be submitting different things to different teachers. Now, when I was a classroom teacher, I had every junior answer the same 5 questions before they left for the summer, just in case they were going to ask me for a recommendation their senior year. Those 5 questions were, what are your academic strengths? How did you show this in my class, or show these in my class? What are your personal strengths? How did you show these in my class? And what did you get out of my class? I would suggest that you submit a letter or an email to each teacher with something very similar. It's a really simple and flexible way to help teachers make your recommendation more specific and more particular to you. Okay, next up, a topic that's near and dear to my heart: financial aid.